If you still crave the one who broke you, here is the ruthless truth you probably have not heard said cleanly. You are not attached to them the way you think. You are attached to the version of reality your nervous system built around them. And that nervous system reality has one mission. It wants to turn uncertainty into certainty. It wants to turn distance into closeness. It wants to turn silence into proof. That is why you can logically know they hurt you and still feel a physical pull, like a hunger. So here is my promise. In this episode, I'm going to show you the exact mechanics of why you still want them, how avoidant behavior installs this in you without them even trying, and the specific strategy that gives you the highest chance of a real return without rewarding instability, without long messages, without chasing, and without losing your position. And I'm going to do it in a way that makes your brain stop negotiating with crumbs. First, we have to separate two things that you keep confusing: love and activation. Love is stable connection plus trust. Activation is your body interpreting a person as a survival variable. When someone becomes a survival variable, you do not just like them. You monitor them. You scan them. You track them. You interpret them. You become reactive to their signal. That is not romance. That is your nervous system trying to stabilize a threat. Now, people hate hearing the word threat because it sounds dramatic. So let me make it precise. Threat does not mean danger like violence. Threat means uncertainty that impacts your sense of worth, belonging, or future. The moment your brain decides that a person controls your safety in those three areas, you will crave them the way you crave certainty. That is why the craving feels intelligent. You think you are chasing love. You are actually chasing relief. Relief from the open loop. Relief from the ambiguity. Relief from the feeling that you were not chosen. Relief from the feeling that you were not enough. And avoidant dynamics are the most efficient way to create that craving because they deliver love like a variable reward schedule. Sometimes you get the warmth. Sometimes you get nothing. Sometimes you get a look that feels like a confession. Then you get a silence that feels like rejection. Your body does not know how to land, so it keeps reaching. Now, I want you to hear this carefully because it will calm you if you stop arguing with it. The reason you still want them is not that they are the only person who could ever love you. It is that your brain has tagged them as unresolved. And unresolved is a drug. Because unresolved creates a specific mental state. It turns you into an investigator, and investigators do not rest until the case is closed. So, you keep collecting evidence: their tone, their timing, their likes, their views, their distance, their warmth, their absence. You turn your whole day into a courtroom where you are trying to prove one thing: that it was real, that you mattered, that you were not crazy. And the more you try to prove it, the more hooked you become, because proof-seeking is participation. It is giving them psychological access even when you are not speaking. This is why you can go no contact and still feel trapped. Because no contact is not just silence. No contact is removing participation. And most people remove texting, but keep participation alive in the mind. So nothing changes inside the system. Your body is still paying. Now, I am going to give you the model. This is the part that makes the whole thing make sense. There are 4 hooks. Most people only talk about one: intermittent reinforcement. That is real, but it is not the whole engine. The 4 hooks are contrast, ambiguity, identity fusion, and unfinished repair. Contrast is the spike. Ambiguity is the loop. Identity fusion is the ego wound. Unfinished repair is the false hope. Let us break them down like an engineer, not like a poet. Hook 1. Contrast. Your brain does not measure love by meaning. It measures love by intensity and change. Stable affection feels calm. Avoidant affection feels like weather. Bright, cold, bright, cold. And the nervous system interprets that change as importance. This is why a stable person can be objectively better and still feel boring at first. Not because boring is bad, but because your body is not being shocked into attention. Avoidant dynamics train your body to need the spike to feel alive. And if you grew up with emotional unpredictability, you are even more sensitive to spikes. The spike feels like home. The spike feels like truth. The spike feels like chemistry. But chemistry is not always connection. Chemistry is often contrast. Hook 2. Ambiguity. Ambiguity is the most addictive cognitive state because your brain hates unsolved puzzles. If someone tells you clearly, "I do not want this," it hurts, but it closes. Avoidants rarely close cleanly. They imply. They half commit. They almost say it. They act like they feel it, then deny it. They give you moments that feel like a bond, then gaps that feel like you imagined it. That is how the loop forms. You are not just sad. You are busy. Your mind is working overtime to restore certainty. Hook 3. Identity fusion. This is where people get embarrassed because they do not want to admit the truth. A huge part of why you want them is not them. It is what getting them would prove about you. You want to be the exception. You want the story that you were chosen. You want the moment where their return cancels the humiliation of being left in confusion. That is not vanity. That is the nervous system trying to repair status and safety. When your worth becomes fused to their choice, every distance becomes a verdict. Every silence becomes rejection. Every delay becomes proof you are failing. So you chase to restore identity, not to build a bond. Hook 4. Unfinished repair. This is the nastiest one because it hides inside good intentions. Unfinished repair is when your brain says, "The story cannot end like this. We did not get to fix it. We did not get to clarify. We did not get the apology. We did not get the moment where they finally understand." So you keep staying available for a future repair that may never come. And because avoidants often give just enough softness to keep that possibility alive, your mind keeps negotiating. Now, here is the part that will change your strategy. You cannot break the hook by forcing yourself to stop feeling. You break the hook by changing what your nervous system is rewarded for doing. Right now, your nervous system is rewarded for chasing because chasing sometimes produces relief. They respond. They soften. They return. That relief becomes reinforcement. So your body learns, when I panic and act, I sometimes get a hit. That is why your self-control collapses at the worst moments. It is not weakness. It is conditioning. So if you want them back and you want it to be real, you have to recondition the reward system. Not with affirmations, with structure. And structure is where most people fail because they confuse leverage with cruelty. They think leverage means ignoring, punishing, playing games. No. Leverage is simply this. You stop paying for closeness with anxiety. You stop funding the dynamic that makes them powerful. You require a different price of admission. That is what changes an avoidant system over time. Now, Let us talk about what actually makes an avoidant come back. Not fantasy, not hope, not begging. Avoidants come back when two conditions happen at the same time. 1. Pressure drops. 2. Consequence becomes real. Pressure is your emotional gravity, your pursuit, your urgency, your need for immediate reassurance, your long explanations. Consequence is the cost of distance, meaning they lose access to you. They lose the emotional supply. They lose the comfort of you being available with no responsibility. Here is what people do wrong. They only do one. They lower pressure by becoming endlessly understanding, and the avoidant relaxes into distance. Or they create consequence by becoming cold, harsh, punishing, and the avoidant feels controlled and runs. You need both. Calm and firm. Calm lowers pressure. Firm raises standards. Calm is tone. Firm is behavior. Calm says, I am not trying to trap you. Firm says, I am not willing to be trapped either. This is the language avoidant nervous systems respond to because it removes their worst fear while keeping your dignity intact. And yes, their worst fear is not losing you. Their worst fear is what happens if they keep you. Not because they do not care, because closeness for them is wired to obligation and shame. They fear being expected to perform closeness on demand, then being judged for failing. So when you chase, you confirm their fear. When you flood them emotionally, you confirm their fear. When you demand instant reassurance, you confirm their fear. When you do performative silence as punishment, you confirm their fear. And they withdraw, not because you are unlovable, but because their system is trying to avoid the cost of connection. So your strategy becomes simple and strict. You remove confirmation. You remove pressure while raising standards. You become calm and firm. Now, I am going to give you the 3 rules that create the highest chance of a return that sticks. Rule 1. Do not act at the peak. The first 24 hours after you feel the pull away is where most people destroy the return. Your nervous system starts bargaining. You start scanning their tone. You start rereading. You start checking. You start thinking, if I just say the right thing, they will come back. And when you act from urgency, you teach an avoidant the worst lesson possible. Distance gives me power.
Because your urgency becomes proof that they can pull away and you will chase. So your first job is not to be silent forever. Your first job is to become unreactive for long enough that you do not reinforce the pattern. If you feel urgency, that is your signal to pause, not to punish them, to protect your position. Because urgency makes you sloppy, and sloppy creates pressure, and pressure is what makes them disappear longer. Rule 2. Do not send the long emotional text. This is the move that ruins leverage more than any other. It feels honest. It feels mature. It feels like closure. But in an avoidant system, it often reads as pressure and expectation. They feel responsible for your emotional state. Responsibility triggers fear. Fear triggers withdrawal. Withdrawal triggers your withdrawal, and then you chase again. So you must break the loop at the exact moment your nervous system begs you to do the thing that has historically made you feel relief. The long text is not connection. It is a bid for regulation. It is you trying to calm your nervous system by getting a response. And it makes sense, but it backfires.
Rule 3. If they return, do not reward the return. Reward the staying. This is the rule that separates people who change the dynamic from people who repeat it for years. When an avoidant comes back, your body floods with relief, and relief is intoxicating. That is why you say yes too fast. That is why you soften your standard. That is why you accept less. But if you reward return, you reinforce the cycle. Leave, return, get rewarded, repeat. So you train the opposite. You meet their return with calm, not punishing, not grateful, steady. You do not explode with relief. You do not collapse into gratitude. You simply stay stable. And you reward consistency over time. Repair, effort, action, reliability. That is what gets more access. Not words, not apologies, not sudden affection. Now let us address the question your brain keeps asking. But what if they never come back? Here is the truth that protects you and also makes your strategy cleaner. If silence pushes them away, chasing would not have turned them into a healthy partner. If calm standards push them away, it means they preferred access without responsibility. That is not a bond you can stabilize by working harder. But if they have real feelings and any capacity, calm and firm does not push them away. It pulls them toward reflection, because it creates space for their nervous system to miss you without being flooded. Avoidants often do not miss you when you are right there asking to be missed. They miss you when pressure is gone and absence is real. That is not manipulation. That is nervous system mechanics. Now, let us make this even more practical. Because some of you are thinking, okay, what do I actually do when they pull away? Here is the protocol. Step 1. Stop paying attention to signals. Signals are not stability. A view is not a bond. A like is not a repair. A short text is not consistency. When you stop treating signals like currency, your brain stops scanning. And scanning is what keeps you hooked. Step 2. Make one decision rule and follow it. If it cannot change your future, do not let it change your nervous system. If their opinion cannot build your life, do not let it control your day. If their inconsistency cannot offer you stability, do not reward it with attention. Step 3. Hold clean communication if you must communicate. Clean communication is short, calm, self-led. No accusation, no pleading, no trial. Something like, I can feel you pulled back. No pressure to talk right now. I am around when you want to reconnect, and I am not available for half in, half out. That is it. One message. Not a conversation, not a debate. Step 4. Go quiet cleanly. And I need you to understand what clean silence means. Clean silence is not protest. It is not performance. It is not you sitting there waiting and suffering while imagining what you will say when they return. Clean silence is removing access in your mind as well. No checking, no hovering, no rereading, no rehearsing, no scanning. Because the loop is not only texting. The loop is attention, and attention is the fuel. Step 5. If they test the waters, treat it like a test, not like a rescue. Many avoidants do not come back with a speech. They come back with a low-risk probe, a like, a joke, a casual message, something that gives them connection without vulnerability. And this is where most people collapse. They respond fast, warm, over-available, over-grateful. And they teach the avoidant a deadly lesson. I can leave, I can come back, and I will be rewarded without changing. So your response must be calm and paced. Friendly, not flooding. Open, not collapsing. Step 6. Require the right type of proof. Not words, not intensity, not apology. Behavior. Consistency. Repair. Effort.
The reason you are hooked is because your nervous system keeps treating potential as proof. So you stop converting potential into hope. You let actions be the evidence. Now, I want to zoom in on the most important psychological shift of this episode because this is what makes you stop craving them like an addiction. Accuracy. The goal is not to become cold. The goal is to become accurate. Accuracy breaks the hook because accuracy ends the signal economy. Accuracy means you stop asking, "What do they feel?" and you start asking, "What do they do?" You stop asking, "What did that look mean?" and you start asking, "What pattern am I living inside?" You stop trying to solve their feelings and you observe their behavior. This is what makes you dangerous to the dynamic, because the dynamic depends on your hope. It depends on your decoding. It depends on you being willing to pay anxiety in exchange for a maybe. When you become accurate, your nervous system stops gambling. And once you stop gambling, the craving starts to collapse. Because craving is not love. Craving is the body trying to end uncertainty. Now, here is the final truth that closes the loop in your brain. You still want them because your nervous system believes the next signal will equal safety. So you stop feeding the signal economy. You do not act at the peak. You do not send the long text. And if they return, you do not reward attention. You reward consistency, behavior, and repair. That is how you get them back without returning to the same trap. Welcome to PsychBond. You're safe here.